Why are there 7 days in a week? Think about it. A day makes sense. It comes from the Earth's rotation. A year makes sense. It comes from the Earth going around the sun. But a week? There is no giant space clock telling the universe after 7 days, start again. So why 7? Why not 5 days? Why not 10? Why did almost the entire modern world end up organizing life around a 7-day cycle? The answer takes us back thousands of years. And strangely enough, it starts in the sky. Ancient people looked upward and noticed something unusual. The sun moved across the sky. The moon changed shape, and there were 5 bright objects that seemed to wander differently from the stars. Today, we know them as Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. To ancient observers, these weren't just planets. They were special. They were the 7 major celestial bodies that appeared to move against the background of the stars: the sun, moon, and those 5 visible planets. And around the first millennium BCE, Babylonian astronomers were already using sophisticated systems of observing and recording the heavens. The Babylonians also divided the month around the moon into periods of roughly 7 days. But here's where the story gets interesting. The 7-day week wasn't simply invented because someone counted 7 objects in the sky. The Babylonians had a much bigger influence on the idea. Their astronomical and calendrical traditions spread through the ancient Near East, and the 7-day cycle eventually became connected with religious practice. Then came the ancient Israelites. In the Hebrew Bible, the creation story describes 6 days of work, followed by a 7th day of rest. The 7th day became the Sabbath. And this wasn't just a way to organize a calendar, it became a religious command. Work for 6 days, rest on the 7th. That helped give the 7-day cycle an incredibly strong cultural identity. But it still wasn't the week we know today, because different ancient societies used different ways of organizing time. Some calendars had months divided differently. Some cultures used market cycles or other recurring periods. There was no universal rule saying every human on Earth had to use 7 days. Then the Roman world helped change that. By the early centuries of the Common Era, the 7-day week was becoming increasingly familiar throughout the Roman Empire. The Romans associated each day with one of the 7 heavenly bodies. This is actually still hiding in modern languages. In English, you can see it in names like Sunday and Monday. Sunday comes from the sun. Monday comes from the moon. And Saturday is connected to Saturn. Other languages preserve even more of this ancient planetary connection. For example, the French names for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday come from Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus. So when you say Tuesday, you're unknowingly carrying a piece of ancient astronomy into the 21st century. But there was another force making the 7-day week extremely difficult to get rid of: religion. Judaism had the Sabbath. Christianity developed Sunday as a central day of worship. And later, Islam gave Friday a special religious significance. Different religions used the 7-day cycle in different ways, but the same 7-day structure kept surviving. And that is the real secret. The 7-day week didn't become powerful because everyone agreed it was scientifically perfect. It became powerful because civilization kept building on it. Religions built traditions around it. Governments used it. Merchants organized around it. Workers organized around it. Families organized around it. Once millions of people depend on the same 7-day cycle, changing it becomes incredibly difficult. And humans have actually tried. During the French Revolution, France introduced a completely different calendar in 1793. The French Republican calendar used 10-day periods called decades instead of 7-day weeks. On paper, it sounded reasonable, but people hated parts of the system, especially the much longer stretch between rest days. The experiment eventually disappeared. The 7-day week survived. And that's what makes the whole thing so fascinating. There's nothing about the Earth itself that requires a 7-day week. It isn't a law of physics. It isn't written into the sun. It isn't hiding somewhere inside the human body. It's a human invention that became so deeply embedded in civilization that it now feels completely natural. So every time Monday arrives and you think, here we go again, remember what you're actually experiencing. You're following a timekeeping tradition that has roots stretching back thousands of years. Ancient astronomy, Babylonian calendars, Jewish religious practice, Roman culture, Christianity, Islam, and generations of people who simply kept using the same cycle: 7 days, 1 week. And somehow, after thousands of years, we're still counting the same way.